you have your time still in New Zealand?
Yes, I'm gonna use my phone. And
What time it?
you do this.
Okay. Oh, everybody in the back, come on the front. Chatterbox. We're gonna actually try to start on time. Hmm. All right, we're ready to start. So, hello everybody. Hello to my students from Artside Technology. It's always great to see you in person. Hello to our grad students here and to those online. I am particularly pleased today to introduce Anne Niemetz because Anne is one of the first students that I worked very closely with when she graduated from Design Media Arts in 2004. And she was closely working with me on an exhibition that we did at the LACMA, the Los Angeles County Museum of Art, called Nano. We did a number of installations, but she was particularly working closely on the Nano Mandala, which is a piece that was a collaboration between a nanoscientist, Tibetan monks from the Gaudenshatse monastery in India, and myself as an artist, and Anne as well. And in that experience, she was also collaborating with other students. So we had a mix of students from the Media Arts Department, Design Media Arts Department, but also the nanotechnology group. And Anne, who was a graduate student working with me, started collaborating with Andrew Pelling, who was a graduate student PhD, with James Jimjevsky, the nanoscientist that I was collaborating with. So what happened that's really beautiful and that to a professor becomes a kind of a reason for doing this kind of work is that these two students, one went off to be a professor in Canada and to do amazing research in science, but continues to collaborate with artists. And Anne, who went off to New Zealand, where she is now directing a media arts program and continues to collaborate, as you will see. When something like this happens, I can't tell you the kind of pleasure it gives to a professor. It gives you your meaning, your kind of reason for doing this kind of work, and it makes you incredibly proud. So with that, I will let you give Anne a thunderous applause, please. Go.
Thank you so much. It really is extraordinarily exciting to be here tonight. And it makes me a bit nervous too because it reminds me of the crits when, a lot of you are grad students, so it's that slight aftertaste of, oh, I'm still here doing a crit. So as Victoria mentioned, I graduated from this distinguished institution in 2004, which is quite a while ago. And when I thought about what I could present today, I assumed there would be two main audience groups. The larger group, those who've never heard of me before, which I assume is most of you, and then possibly people like Victoria, and I'm not sure if any of my previous professors are here that would possibly want to know what I've done since I left. So I want to talk a bit about the work that I've done since I graduated. I would like to show you some of my own student work, and also I'd like to give you some context about the items that are going to be exhibited at the Art Sci Gallery, which the opening is on Thursday from 5 to 7. You're all very much invited to come and have a look. So, just briefly to my background, because I do assume that you don't know me. Before I came here to do my master's, I studied in Germany. I studied media arts. I focused on interactive sound installations, as well as stage design or performance design, various things. And then here, when I came here, Victoria raised and supported my interest in two particular areas. Am I too close? That's good. Yeah, I'm loud enough, am I? So, two areas, one being wearable technology. I was the TA for the fashion and technology class back then. And the other broader area is art science collaboration. I already had done quite a few collaborative works up until then, but then I really learned more about that type of collaboration, ended up writing my thesis about art science collaboration. So in 2007, 9 years ago, I moved to New Zealand. This is my house. This is where I live. And there I work at the School of Design in the program of media design at Victoria University of Wellington. I won't tell you too much about this university today, but please come for an exchange trimester if you can. It's a lovely place. So there were two projects I did as a student here that I think were quite influential for the further development of my work. And the first one, Victoria already mentioned, is The Dark Side of the Cell. This was a collaboration with Andrew Pelling, who is now a very successful scientist and research chair, or chair of research in Canada. And I don't want to really talk about this work because a lot of people have seen this, but I do want to mention that it was shown twice after it was premiered here in LA, and each time the sculptures of this work got larger and larger. So it was shown once in Germany, and this is a picture of Andrew and me building our tensegrity sculptures. And in Hong Kong, where it then was shown another time, we had 3 large sculptures. So it was quite satisfying to continue that project. The other project that I made in my time here, and that remained influential until this day, is the project called Stretching LA. And this is a wearable technology project. It's a performance for 4 performers. They can use their suspenders to trigger sound samples taken from the Larry King Show, as he is, of course, the man with the suspenders. And while it's quite a funny work, it's also media critical. And first it was shown as an interactive installation, and then once I knew it was working, we performed it. We did a live performance at the SIGGRAPH Cyber Fashion Show in 2013. And I'll just show you a very a small excerpt of this project.
Hi, Los Angeles. What's life been like for you? Are you worried about war? Yeah. What's life been like for you? Seems to get harsher all the time. What's the story? Are you surprised? Story. It's the story. What's life been like? Try to control. Seems to get harsher all the time. Los Angeles,
try to
Los
control,
Angeles,
is it
Los
true?
Angeles,
Control,
Los
try to
Angeles,
control,
Los
try to
Angeles.
control.
All right, I think you get the idea. So that was big fun, and here you have some pictures from the live performance. Now, back then, sensors and wireless technology was really not affordable for students. So these guys were cabled through their pants into the room next door, where I was sitting with my computer with this gigantic microcontroller, the thing on the left, which I thought was a clever idea back in the day to put this microcontroller in one of these, letter-sized boxes. And every design you did that was wearable had to have a cable. So you really started thinking about how can I integrate this cable as a visual aesthetic element, because you couldn't pretend it wasn't there. Now, of course, everything changed when Arduino came to the market, and ever since then we've had a really vibrant maker community. Personally, the Arduino I use is the one in the top right here, the LilyPad, which was designed by Professor Leah Büchli at MIT, especially for wearable applications. It's round, you can sew into it with conductive thread. It's really made for wearable applications, and I'm sure we'll see some better, even smaller microcontrollers for that area soon as well. But yeah, so that was my introduction to wearable technology. And at this point, and this is a student work of mine, we're this far that we can have tiny little electronics on your nails as nail art, and I think that's quite beautiful. It shows the miniaturization quite well of technology and what you can do. So one of the works that uses wearable technology is this project called Revolve. It is a collaboration amongst quite a few people, including myself and the choreographer, Dr. Carol Brown, who you just saw. That's her, wearing a suit that allows her to control a sound environment. Now, this project was quite interesting. It came out of a art science workshop held at the Sleep-Wake Research Center in Wellington, where I live. And it was led by Dr. Philippa Gander, who is a chronobiologist, that's the name of a sleep scientist, and Sam Trubridge, a sonographer. And they brought together 6 artists from various art genres and 6 scientists that were chronobiologists but dealt with different fields within chronobiology. And we had a very interesting workshop, talking, experimenting. The artists made the scientists use their own tools. So in these pictures, you see the scientists exposed to their own methods of investigating how people sleep and these things. And I think we all learned a lot. And through this workshop, there were follow-up projects. Revolve, the one I'm speaking about now, was one of these projects that then I think about 1.5 years later it was performed on stage. So from all the many things I learned a lot about the various sleep stages in our brain waves and how our brain behaves. And this had a big influence on the dramaturgy of the performance piece, on the lighting design. The subtitle of Revolve is From Dusk Till Dawn, so it is this journey of the sleeper's mind and body throughout the night. And the other thing that I found highly interesting is the importance of light on our circadian rhythm. So before I met sleep scientists, I thought I came from Mars, because if you put me in a dark box, my cycle would be like 25, 26 hours a day, and that's actually normal. And the reason is, if we were synchronized to the 24-hour schedule of the Earth, we could never change time zones. So the fact that we're actually not synchronized and allows us to travel to a new time zone, you need a big blast of light in the morning to set your circadian rhythm for the next 24 hours, and that's how you can adjust it. So simple things like that I thought was completely amazing. And this led to a variety of thoughts. So for one thing, I put light sensors on the dancer's wrist so that she could control sound through the amount of light that she was exposing her wrists to. And the whole thing with the different planetary movements and how this influences our living cycles also took a big influence on the sound design. So you know how the tides are influenced by the moon? And you probably also know that there are, what do you call them, king tides and neap tides? There might be different terms for this in different countries. So while the cycle of the tides is always the same amount of time, some of them are bigger and some of them are smaller. And that is a third cycle that comes through the influence of the Earth Earth rotating around the sun. So thinking about this overlapping of cycles, of living cycles, that's for one where the title Revolve comes from, but also the sound design had at times, not throughout the piece, but at times, was based on the binaural beat or the monaural beat. Now, who has heard of auditory beats before? Is this something new for you guys? No? It's new. Okay. You know what it is, though. You knew that I was messing around with this beforehand, too. So I still think it's completely fascinating. If you take a frequency of one tone, and here I've got a 200 hertz, and you take a frequency of a very close but not the same frequency, so let's say 202 hertz, and you play these tones together, you will be able to hear a 2 hertz difference, and this is the beat. And that is created in space through the two frequencies meeting. If you listen to it on headphones, your brain creates this third beat. And it's really well visualized here, so you've got the black and the blue lines are two frequencies that are very similar but not the same, and then you get this big beat. Now, I find this is extremely interesting to musicians because we can't, as humans, we don't hear anything below 20 hertz, and if you can hear 20 hertz, your hearing is very good. But we can actually hear these very slow beats, and if they're loud enough, of course, we can experience them physically as well, which you know through standing next to a bass speaker in a club is how that is actually physically experiential. And so these thoughts took a big influence on the sound design, and there was one phase during the piece in the deep sleep phase where all the neurons in the brain are synchronized and make these big beats together, and it's usually a quite dreamless phase of sleep that the dancer would then use her wrists to try to get the amount of light on her wrists about the same to bring out these monaural beats, and it would really shake the audience, and it would really be physically experiential. Now, I'll just because I went on about this, I should demonstrate to you that it's true, and I'm not making this up. Mousey, come on. It's a bit difficult with the mouse. So I've got, no? Are you gonna not? Okay, so this is 200 hertz. I'll play you that. 202 hertz. Really close, right? Let's play them together, and you should hear a 2 hertz difference. Right? Now, if you play a string instrument, you know this, because when you tune your instrument, you're trying to get rid of those, right? And then they're exactly the same. As long as you've got that beat, you know they're not in tune, the two strings. And here another example. So that was a 2 hertz beat, and now we'll do a 6 hertz beat between 208 hertz and 202 hertz. And it will be faster. Now, there are a lot of people that are dealing with it. There's not really much scientific evidence for it, but there's a big community that believes that you can entrain your brain waves with monaural, binaural beats, so that your brain listening to these beats would then be more inclined to attune to a certain frequency. So in a way, this whole performance was also an experiment on the audience and seeing how they would react to the whole work and the sound design and the light and all that. And it was well received. We performed it in Christchurch in a blow-up theater, because I don't know if you heard this here, but Christchurch got completely destroyed by a earthquake. And with that, all the theaters were gone, and so we performed in this temporary structure, which actually made it an even more beautiful experience, because you could see the trees through the tent. Anyway, so I've done some works like these. I wanted to show you this one as example. A very different side of wearable technology that I very much enjoy is that of costumes and, and and I teach a course called Wearable Technology, and I'm very proud of the student works that have come out of this course. It's a third year course, so undergrad students, and our degree only lasts 3 years until you get your bachelor's, so they're on their way out and might be able to add a very different piece of work to their portfolio with this class. And I do let the students do whatever they're interested in, so we've got students that want to do very applied work, maybe for safety, health, commercial applications, and we have students that really want to explore the costume side, the fashion statement, these kind of things. On the left you have a work. This was a skirt that reacted to earthquake data, which is a very important topic in New Zealand. But on the right side you also see a wedding dress, and something like this I could totally imagine actually being sold at some point. This is another example of a work. This work got quite a bit of media attention. It is a glove that allows sign language speakers to sign in low light situations. And I think it's a very good thought, and I'm not sure if this type of product actually exists. So the students got, over the years, I think I've been teaching this 5-6 years now, got better and better, of course, looking at, the group of last year and then trying to up their work. And soon they were developing full body costumes and also works that were accepted in the high fashion area. You do need to know, though, you need to know about this show to understand why most of the work, at least the work that I'm showing you today, is so costume-based, is so outrageously big and all that. We have the show called World of Wearable Art, and it's decadent. It's a spectacle. It goes 2.5 hours. You think Las Vegas. And designers from all the world hand in their wearable art costumes. Now, this could be anything sculptural. It has to be big and bold, made for the stage. You have to be able to see it from far away. The show draws an audience of 50,000 each year with 12 shows. And I believe they're showing some of the most interesting costumes in Seattle this year at the EMP for a half a year if you're up there. So my students also, if they do want to work in wearable tech in the costume area, they try to get their designs into the show, and we've been really, really successful. So there's a competition, and if you get in, it's really great for your CV. It's just a real good career starter, and you could possibly even get money. And this was the first work that we entered and got in, and I think still set the bar, just technically so elaborate and quite gorgeous as a piece. And the student went on and had a very successful career, and I believe she sold this work to a company in the States that rents out crazy costumes to pop stars. I didn't know it existed. So that was the first one, and then I thought, all right, I better do something. So I made the children's costume for the children's section with, I love sci-fi and things like that. So it's a little UFO, the Starship Pirouette, and that was featured in 2013. And in the same year, my student Rachel did this incredibly gorgeous dress. She's from the Cook Islands, so of course we have the South Pacific influence in New Zealand. And this was featured in the South Pacific section. You can see not only is it a gorgeous costume, but every piece represents something important in her culture. So the headpiece is the sun and so on. And she then, because this was such a success for her, she then continued and did her master's focusing on how you could combine wearable technology with the traditional costume making methods of the South Pacific, in particular the Cook Islands, and she did work like this. This was 2014, so another student work that made it into the show. And then last year, of course, was the best year. It gets better every year. We've had this work, which is just so impressive on the craft level. I find the dragon skin is actually made out of cardboard, which was laser cut, but then varnished and made to look like timber. So it is quite gorgeous. And I'm working up to this one. This one's really great. So this one is amazing. It has 150 motors in it, and they all move individually. And I will show you a video of it because I'm so impressed. The movement is quite disturbing in a way. You see it, it's amazing, but it makes you feel slightly uncomfortable to watch it. So I think I'm ending my little showing of student work with this. We're going to go to a video. At the end of each year, we do a wearable technology show, and all the students get to show their work, but I'm going to skip to the end of the video so you get to see the video of this particular work, which really is quite outstanding. Really need the music. Strange, eh?
Just keep swimming, just keep swimming, just keep swimming, 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 just keep swimming.
And this is me and my students, yep. At the end of the show, being happy that it all worked. You know how it goes. So yeah, no, we have big fun. Okay, so now to something entirely different, completely different. Heavy metal. So going away from wearable tech, back to cross-disciplinary collaboration, a project of quite different flavor is the Forks and Sockets project. Forks and Sockets brought together people that are interested in doing strange things with electricity in a cross-disciplinary context. And the quote of Erkki Kurenniemi describes our goal well. You see it at the bottom. The young dissident naturally wanted to play tricks and misuse all technology. That's how electronic music was born. We started making music with devices made for other purposes. Technology won't take control as long as man can misuse it. And I'm a big fan of misusing technology. So in 2002, I got together with engineer Josh Bailey and sonic artist Dougal McKinnon in order to bring musicians and engineers together to perform with and through the Tesla coil. The project grew as an experimental playground for science and art and soon included engineers, contemporary composers, designers, and artists. And so we ended up doing a big public performance, which we then called Forks and Sockets, presenting the results of these investigations. For the performance, so you see the Tesla coil, of course, is the main performer. And at the time, it could play several notes, so the engineers built a custom interface to play this coil. Now, you probably have seen singing Tesla coils before. It's not completely unusual, but usually people will just give it, let's say, a piece of classical music, Bach or something like that, and then show, oh, it makes sound. Now, in this project, what really is, I think, the unique aspect of it is we got serious composers, real composers, to compose for this new music instrument. So the pieces are made for that instrument. And meanwhile, the engineers have it to a point where it can play, I believe, 16 voices at once. It's an amazing music instrument. You have to think of it more as a synthesizer than a coil, but it wasn't quite as far when we did this concert. However, the coil is the main performer. The mobile you see above, that was my work, my contribution. It's a simple mobile with fluorescent tubes on it, and they illuminate when the coil plays because there's wireless electricity seeping into the space. So it's a visualizer in a way. We had designers as VJs. Here's Raziz Spell, whom you might know, creating visuals in contemporary ways with wearable technology, in fact. And then we had some more music instruments. So another instrument that has made quite a few waves in New Zealand is the Mek Bass. You see it here at the bottom. It's a bass that has a 4-string separate, and it plays accurate, and it plays faster than any human being could play. And so it is also featured in one of the 3 compositions that were created specifically for this event. Oh, I did forget to mention that I didn't show you a video of the Revolve project, but there will be a documentation video playing at the Art Science Gallery, and there will also be a documentation video of this Tesla coil project. I'm going to show you a quick one of this, but if you like it, go to the Art Science Gallery and see the much longer version of it. So I've got a video for you with excerpts of the 3 different compositions which are completely different in flavor. Let's see if this goes. see the video documentation this Thursday at the Art Sci Gallery. And I'm happy to report we didn't kill anybody with this project, because it is quite dangerous to mess with electricity of that kind of frequency. So finally, I'd like to tell you a little bit about this work called Drone Sweet Drone. It's my latest work, and I will be showing it. It will be the main piece in the Art Science Gallery on Thursday. Now, who of you owns a hobby drone? Like, two people, really? Yes. Well, I don't have one myself, but my friends do. Yeah, I'm not good enough at flying them. I'm not very good at flying them. And a couple more. This project combines traditional and temporary craft and technologies and currently manifests itself as 7 embroidery hoops that each feature a technical drawing of a drone. The rotational circles of the blades are emphasized through tiny surface mount LEDs that display circular patterns. Now, as a maker, I absolutely adore multi-copters, and one of the inspirations for this project was my master's student's work in this area. This is him. He would build race drones and actually got hired by a drone company, designing and flying them. What a dream, right? But as a global citizen, I also have to say I'm concerned about the use of drone technology in warfare as well as commercialization. Here's a little bit of a video. Drones are commonly associated with unmanned attacks on civilians and the surveillance of populations. Quite rightly, there is a significant concern about the use of drone technologies for these often ethically dubious ends. Most recently, drone swarms, in particular, have been the focus of this concern. At the same time, a normalization of drone technology is taking place. In the West this year, many technology lovers, hackers, and makers received drones as Christmas presents. And users can even play games on the US Air Force website that mimic missions to locate and destroy enemy targets. By referencing Home Sweet Home, an expression that was popular with troops on both sides of the American Civil War, and seemingly glorifying drones, Drone Sweet Drone aims to open up discussion about the uses of drone technology beyond its usual associations with warfare. The aesthetics of the drones combine techniques associated with the past and the future, art and science, the amateur and the professional, and the feminine and masculine. The blueprint texts prompt us to further consider the potential of drones, as well as the gendering of new technologies and the masculine associations of war and surveillance. Drone Sweet Drone is purposely conspicuous rather than stealthy. By fusing the traditional with the technologically advanced, Drone Sweet Drone asks us to consider the ordinary and extraordinary ways that drones affect our everyday lives. Which was the text by Sarah Baker, another collaborator on this project. So just a little bit about where they came from. So my new toy is an embroidery machine. I love it dearly. You can give it images and it will embroider them for you. And then there was quite a bit of electronics work involved to get this going. And I ended up with 7 drones. And you will see them on display as a drone swarm this Thursday if you come to my show. And that's all I have prepared for you today. Thank you for your attention, and yeah, thanks a lot.
We do have time for questions, so does anybody have questions for Anne?
Hi.
It's working.
Okay, great. I see that you use sound a lot as a resolution to your thinking process when you have collaborations with scientists, or even it sounds like before you started working with ArtSci. What about sound is a captivating medium for you to sort of interpret the world with?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Could you just talk a little bit more about your interest in sound?
Yes. Well, as art students, I'm sure you're quite aware of the influence of sound design, but a lot of people do not realize how much it influences us. The best example being films, of course, how our emotions are really enhanced or directed through sound. So I also teach an audiovisual class, and the first thing we do is start listening consciously. I think it's so important and really difficult in society nowadays with the constant noise and all that. So listening first, very important. Listening differently, maybe listening with contact microphones. but for me, it's just one of the things that has always been there. So even before I knew I would go and study media art, I was playing in a band, and so it's always been really important to me, and I intuitively felt the importance of it. But of course, there is science there that you can call upon. And it's funny because the Drone Suite Drone project is one of the few silent projects I've ever made. Maybe it needs some sound. Drones do make very interesting noises, quite annoying noises. You'll find that people are actually more annoyed at the noise they make than the fact that they're there surveilling you. Isn't that interesting? Yeah, thank God they make noise, right? Yeah. If security cameras made noise. Yeah, interesting, good project. Yeah.
So I'm curious how you make an installation for the wearable clothes and the sound project that you showed us in the earlier presentation. Are they very size-specific projects that you did, or is there like a live performance, or how would you like install them in like an exhibition space? Like,
Okay, so
I mean, the drone is kind of obvious because they're like the wall pieces.
Yes.
But however, like the earlier pieces that you showed us in the beginning of the lecture,
the wearables, they are performance
so
pieces.
those
I
are
really
the
have to
performance
say.
pieces. And
Yes, sometimes we put them on mannequins and show them, but often they have an interactive component, and that's very hard for a mannequin. Mannequin doesn't move much. So I think they are pieces that need to be worn, hence their wearable technology, and that need to be presented by people. So you end up doing performances. But you can put them on mannequins, I guess. In my personal work, it's all about the interaction. Because before that, I used to do tracking. I used to use tracking technology, so cameras, to look at the space and how people move. And then when I discovered the whole electronics and that you could look at movement, at body movement in space differently, and you could actually know much more than what you can find out through a two-dimensional image, I got really interested in that. And for me, it's about reading the dancers' movements because they are professional in moving in space in the way I could never. And I just get a taste of that through the data that I read from their body, how they move. Yeah. It's very interesting.
And is your targeted audience like art audience, or are you interested in interaction with just broader audience, or like
That's a really good question, because here I studied media arts, or this program's called Design Media Arts, but I teach at the School of Design, so there's no official media arts connected. But you know what? I don't even know where the border is anymore. It's so fluent between art and design, and you find designers applying for art scholarships, grants, and residencies, and vice versa. And I think that's great. I just love when the borders dissolve anyway, so I'm not going to be the one saying that's art or design, and I just want my audience to get something out of it, and I don't care if they're a design or an art audience, as long as it works for them, really, yeah. And I think it's liberating. You need to liberate yourself from these labels. You can find your own work much better that way. Well, thanks, guys. Have a great evening.